Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Debrief. Super excited today to have Stephanie back.
What's up, guys?
Back from sabbatical.
I'm back from sabbatical.
Yes. What did you learn about Jesus while you were gone?
That he is good and kind.
Yes.
To all of
Touchdown.
us.
Jesus likes it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it so much.
Amen.
But that's another story. Pray for Stephanie and us in couple counseling as we work out her Sabbaths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bit long. But you are with child?
I am with child,
Yes.
so I was not off from growing a human.
No.
So
That's a full-time job.
yeah, it's a full-time job. He reminds
doesn't
me all
end.
the time.
Doesn't end.
No.
Tim,
I'm back.
welcome back. Tim Dog Millionaire.
Good to be
For those
here.
of you who are new to the show, the prodigal son has returned.
True.
Here we are.
Yes.
I was
We're
not.
the former assistants league.
We
Yeah.
are. We are. It's
Yes.
a
Both.
reunion tour.
Tim
Started
has
out-
sinned against his father and is returning.
And I still want the inheritance, please.
Yes.
I do notice that you have the same PMB shoes, though.
I follow him not only in his lifestyle choices, but also
Yeah.
in his wardrobe choices.
In his steps.
Yes.
Oh,
In
that's
his
beautiful,
steps.
you guys.
Yeah.
It's very special.
You probably are responsible for a big uptick in Vans
Yeah.
sales throughout the years.
I'm a big Vans guy because
Yeah.
it's local. I mean, it started in Corona.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't remember the Vandenbergs or the Vanden something, the
Yeah.
Vanderrats. I forget their last name, but they're Dutch, a Dutch family in Corona. And that's where the name
Yeah.
Vans comes from.
They made a good decision. They started making shoes that are actually comfortable.
Yeah, well, because their audience got old. That's what happened.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
they've done something now. Like that was, they
They
followed.
transitioned well.
They did.
Churches
They did.
should learn. Well, welcome everybody. Glad that you are listening and joining us today. And so we're mixing it up a little bit. We're going to be changing the debrief up a little bit this year. We're going to go from every week to 14 episodes
Yeah,
a
we're
year?
going 14. We'll probably sneak in a couple extra. I feel like you'll get inspired and want to
Yeah.
do some more, but at least once a month.
If there is inspiration, there will be a debrief. If there is no inspiration, we will wait upon the Lord.
so if you like the show, pray for some
Yeah.
inspiration.
So that's just to give me a break as I'm doing 5 services on the weekend as the primary teacher at Sandals Church. So I'm just trying to not go crazy. So that would be, I think everyone should pray for that. Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's good.
Amen.
All right. So what else? Oh, you're going to ask me about the new series starting.
I was. So one of the things that we're trying to do with this new format is give you a chance to really speak into where are we going for the next couple months as a church? What's our next sermon series going to be like? Here we're talking dating, relationships. Valentine's Day is coming,
Yes,
so
yes,
it's
yes.
well-timed.
So our next series is called Non-Negotiable, and it's actually a study broadly on the book of Proverbs, but specifically on Proverbs 31. So Proverbs 31 is a chapter written by a mother to her son. And it talks about what kind of wife to look for and how not to waste your lives. And so most people don't realize this, but Proverbs starts with wisdom from the father and it ends with wisdom from the mother. And it talks about what kind of women to avoid in Proverbs 5 and what kind of women to look for in Proverbs 8. Wisdom, she also calls from the streets, which is personified in Proverbs 31. So it's going to be super exciting. I don't think people believe, a lot of young people are not getting married, don't believe in true love, don't, believe in like what it means to just kind of do life with one person. And we're losing that. Europe is way ahead of us. People cohabitate. They're not having children. There's serious issues because of the way that we view dating, marriage. It's just absolutely tragic what's happening to the world. And I think Americans were not far behind. I just heard a statistic in Romania. 50% of all babies conceived are aborted.
Wow.
50%.
Oh my God.
So just think about that. That's what's happening. People don't want to raise children. They're focused on their careers. And what's happening in Europe and in Japan is there's not enough children to take care of the old people. And so it's a real problem because people don't value love. They don't value raising family. They don't value just that idea of, being with one person for life for the purpose not only of love making, but experiencing love. And so we're going to look at that. What are the non-negotiables? What are the things that you need to look for? What does God have to say about love? I actually had I probably had my lowest pastor moment in, I don't know, a couple years. And that's saying something. So I was riding my bike at the gym and I don't know why all my stories happen at the gym, but I forgot my headphones. So normally I want to tune everybody out and just do my own
International
thing.
sign of please don't talk to me.
Which people never care that I have headphones in. They want to talk to me anyways. But I didn't have my headphones in, and so there was these 3 guys next to me, and they were talking. And, I'm not supposed to be eavesdropping, but I was because I have ADD, and I'm trying to read through my day, I think it was day 12. I'm trying to read through day 12 on my Bible reading program, and it was Moses in the burning bush, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. And I hear this guy, and I hear them talking about God. And I should have stopped listening right then.
Turned aside.
But this guy was sharing his faith and inviting these guys to a Bible study, which is great, except that every time he used God's name, he followed it up with an F-bomb. You know, like, God is effing awesome. God is effing this. God, and I'm literally like, I'm trying to pedal the bike, and I can't get it around. And I'm high 3 on the Enneagram, but I'm also high 8. And so I was hopeful that my 3 would show up to the party to confront these guys, but the 8 came roaring out like a lion. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And finally, this is what the guy said. He said, hey, you guys come over to my house, we'll read the Bible together, and we'll smoke a bowl.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I lost it. And so it's so funny. This guy's preaching to me. God's all about love, bro. It's all about love. And you're supposed to come out and compel me. And you're the reason I don't want to go to church. And it was really bad.
Yikes.
It was so bad.
Did they know you were like? Did that come out?
That came out at some point.
Okay.
At some point in time,
Yes.
that came out, and he actually said, "I think I've been to your church." I'm like, "Oh, great," but I had to end up apologizing because of my approach to all 3 of them. But listen to me, God is loving, but he's also righteous, and he loves you where you are, but he's not called you to stay there. And, you know, the Greek word pharmakia in the Bible is translated witchcraft. It's where we get our English word pharmacy. And you should not be smoking weed unless you have a diagnosed illness, and there is some medical research, real research, not like your cousin Vinny, real research that supports you need to be taking this. And you certainly shouldn't be smoking a bowl before you read the Bible. So anyways, it turned into this conversation, and I had to challenge these 2 non-Christians who they probably didn't even want to be witnessed to anyways by this guy who's trying to invite them to train, read the Bible, smoke weed. Yeah, it was the most bizarre relational car crash. Like, if you played a video of how not to talk to somebody about Jesus, like, you just watch me. You're like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And so I ended with, I want you to know that I'm really sorry. Please, will you forgive me? Yes. You're not a Christian. Stop sharing the gospel. I want you to forgive me. Will you forgive me? Yes. You are not right with God. You need to be, and you cannot stay where you are and call yourself a follower of Christ. And I just walked out sweaty, weary, and that was my warm up. I was riding the bike.
Well, they got the blood
for 5
flowing.
to 10 minutes to warm up, and I was sweating, and I was just
that was your workout.
So it was a different kind of
spiritual.
workout. That's fine.
Yeah, like. I think the guy thought I wanted to fight him, which maybe
you might have.
It's just like, oh my gosh.
There was a little bit of that.
I should start a reality show called Sharing Jesus Gone Wrong. Like, it just was so bad. Like, I told my wife, I was like, I've listened to none of my sermons. Like, I'm so bad. So anyways, he was like, everybody's version of love is whatever they think it means. And so, yes, the Bible says God is love, but 1 Corinthians 13 says love rejoices when the truth wins out. And so this guy was talking about love, but the truth wasn't winning. The truth was losing. The truth was lost. Like, I can't ever remember a time where I've asked somebody to stop sharing the gospel. Like, stop. Because this is not, and I think he was just trying to be cool. I don't know what he was trying to do. But,
Be the cool Christian.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank God. I said, do you go to church? And he said, yes, and it's not ours. I was like, thank you, Lord.
It's a cannabis
we have our
church.
knuckleheads here.
Yeah.
Too, yeah.
We were talking to the guys before the show.
Cannabis church.
The cannabis church is alive and well in America. Apparently, there's one.
How do you set service times for a weed church?
Hey, whenever you guys want.
Bro, it's gonna be like around noon.
Yeah.
Like, and then how do you get people to leave?
Well,
like, everybody's just sitting there forever.
Just don't have snacks. So they have to come.
I know.
So
yeah, the church fights, brownies or gummies
every week. Yeah, exactly. No need for a smoke machine. We've got the cannabis supplies. Budgets are being saved here and there. So
yeah, it's true.
No singing at all, just guitar solos.
Yeah.
Bongo drums.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Oh man.
I just offended our whole cannabis audience.
Hey, I'm excited about the series too. I think
Thank you for bringing it back. That was good.
I'm excited about the series. The Proverbs helping us to become the kinds of people that even make wise decisions. So people are trying to figure out, who should I marry? Read the Proverbs, become the kind of person that will choose the right person.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what career to do, become the kind of person that figures out what God's purpose is first and then aligns with that. Like, that's good stuff. So I'm excited for it. It's going to be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm imagining there are probably some people who are like, oh, this sounds like it's a dating series. I can probably just check out. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. And so a big part of that, and especially if you're older and you're listening, a big part of it is you have so much to say and to speak into people's life who are dating, and they need that. And we've not done a good job as a culture helping people to plan, prepare, and think about, what it is that they're looking for in a spouse. And so, like, we say things like, you'll just know when you know. The Bible says, look for these things.
Yeah.
Like, here's the things that you want to look for. And I'm going to bring some of those things out, but it's not just for dating; it's for friendships, man. If you're looking at a job, if you want to take a job somewhere, look at the culture. Like, what is the culture like? I mean, these are healthy principles for relationships, because ultimately, what a marriage is about, it's not all about just sex. It's about actually living life together and working together to accomplish a purpose and a goal, right? That's the same thing at work. That's the same thing at home. It's the same thing with your kids. And here's the things that you need to be aware of if you want to have a successful relationship. And she begins her words with, "Do not waste your life on women as many kings do." And so what she's saying is a lot of smart guys get it wrong. And girls, just back then, women didn't have hardly any say in who they dated. So that's why Proverbs 31 is not written to a woman in her hunt for a man, because she's ultimately going to lean on her father to make that deal back then. But it's for the young man to not just be deceived by his eyes, but to actually look at some other things and some other qualities that really, really matter and will ultimately make him better. And that's the thing, is God wants to make, if you choose to be married and you choose to pursue that path, God wants that to make you better. You don't have to be married to be a Christian, but if you do, it should be a blessing, and it should help you to bless others and further the kingdom and do great things together. And so that's my prayer for the series, and I'm excited.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm excited too. So we want to get back to something you talked about some this weekend, because we got some questions on that, specifically just around the realm of like our dreams and our desires. And I think, Tim, you have the question that the person
came in on Instagram. They started out, loved the outfit this weekend, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait,
you got a shout out to your Adidas.
I'm not sure. Did the person love it? I loved it too. I like the shoes. I noticed the shoes.
My wife said, "What is wrong with those shoes?"
They looked like they were shining like the heavens.
These are like what Jesus will wear when he returns. Yeah, these are the shoes for those watching online.
They just look like brilliant beacons of light when I was watching on the screen.
I've had the same clothes on since yesterday.
Thank you for that moment of
I have not changed.
authenticity.
No, seriously. I put these sweats on yesterday. I went to I took a couple pastors out to dinner last night. Actually, they paid, so they took me out. I picked the restaurant. They paid the bill.
Maybe they were when they saw you showing up
and
in
then I went
sweats.
and watched my son's game. Then we drove to Palm Springs because he had to take his driver's test yesterday or to this morning. And so we had an issue. I looked at our insurance cards. When do you think they expired?
This year. Last year.
February 2nd.
Oh, great.
Oh.
So it was February 3rd was the test. And so I'm trying to download the app. And of course, it's midnight in Palm Springs. So there's no insurance agent available anywhere. And I didn't go to bed till 2, haven't showered. Blessings to you both.
Well. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to make for a great episode then, I think.
Can't smell
I just commuted.
So.
I commuted to work today from Palm Springs.
Wow.
Amen.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the question is kind of following up on the following desires versus God's plan for our lives. Could you elaborate on the point where you said, follow God instead of my desires and dreams? When the person first heard this point and in other sermons, it can sound like, well, everyone should work in ministry, or people seem to take it that way. They know lots of people who've had successful careers in business and leverage what they have been blessed with for the kingdom, but have still followed the dream or passion to do that thing that has ultimately allowed them to do more financially, care for God's church, and volunteer and minister on the side.
Yeah, and here's what I would say to this question and every question. If I say something that shocks you and hits you sideways, just assume you heard it wrong. Just make that assumption, because often what we're doing is we're reacting to what we think's being said. So the most important thing in that point was follow God instead of your desires and dreams. And so at first I was going to put instead of your desires, and I don't think I would have got any pushback with just that word desires, because I think people would go, okay, I can see how my desires are negative.
Are bad. Yeah,
they're bad.
Exactly.
But I put the word dream in there because I think that oftentimes our dreams are romanticized desires. And so what we try to sell people on is that my desires are God blessed because they're my dreams. And so in the context of Lot's life, he was called to follow Abram, who was being blessed. They were being blessed. He became incredibly wealthy. He wasn't called into full-time ministry. They were sheep herders. And they had become extraordinarily wealthy. They had servants, they had sheep, they had, camels. They were wealthy beyond their dreams. God had blessed them. So they're not going to go become pastors. But what he did is he looked at Zor, in the direction of Zor, towards Sodom and Gomorrah. And here's the point is, our natural inclination is to be drawn to the things of the world. Right? It just is. We are drawn to to be able to tap into our desires and our inhibitions. And right, that's what the big city does. The big city gives you camouflage so you can be everything that you couldn't be in a small town and get away with it and nobody knows you. There's anonymity in big towns. And so Lot, right, I'm going to get away from my uncle. I'm going to get away from his control. I'm going to go to Sodom and Gomorrah. And he doesn't go to it. He goes near it. Mm-hmm. And so what he does is he says, Uncle, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm not going to follow you as you follow God. I'm going to follow my own path. And I just want every person listening to me. God may be calling you to follow your own path, but he might not be. Mm-hmm. And so you can't go solely based upon your dreams and your desires. That's why I think so many young people are unhappy. That's why so many young people have all this college debt, because they go to college and literally college counselors will say, what are you passionate about? Like, okay, those are called hobbies.
Yeah.
Those are called vacations. And some of us are lucky enough to get jobs that we really, really enjoy. And let me just tell you this. There are many aspects of my job that I love. There are things that I loathe. Like fundraising. I could live and die and never have to ask a person for $1 again. Like, I hate that about my job. It's one of my primary duties. My primary duties.
Yeah.
If we don't raise, $20 million this year, we're in trouble. We got 11 campuses, 20,000 people, right? You should look at our cracker budget. For crackers for 2 to 3 year olds, they are like piranhas in there, just like feasting.
Yep.
That
goldfish ministry.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say here is a lot of people are caught up in, I have to have my specific dream, my specific desire. Now, go for it for a season. Get some counsel, talk to people, and go for it. But I've got friends that are they're in their mid 40s, still trying to make it in Hollywood. They're delivering fast order food. Mm-hmm. You're 45 years old. You have a college degree. You're delivering McDonald's to somebody's house. Maybe it's time to do something else. Maybe it's not. Yeah. Maybe it's time. And I just think that you can get really, really wrapped up in your own circle. And here's the thing is Lot never gets out of his desires. Even at the end of his life, after Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed, God says, flee. He says, no, I can't. We won't survive. He's arguing with God still. And he says, let me go to Zor, the little city. That's what it means in Hebrew, the little city. Let me go there. And God says, fine, I won't destroy that little sinful city. And he goes there, and he can't even last there. And I didn't tell you guys this who listened to the sermon, but his wife dies. He ends up living in a cave with his daughters. They're like, Dad's going to die. And back in those days, your inheritance was your child, your firstborn male. So they get their dad drunk and have sex with their dad, and he impregnates them both. That's how the story ends.
Yikes.
Like, that's hideous.
Yeah, that's horrendous.
And it's all because Lot never asks what God wants. He always asks, what do I want? Mm-hmm. I want to be happy. I want to be famous. I got to get away from my uncle. I got to do this. I. And that is the danger of our society. And so what I would say to a young man or young woman in picking a career, I would say, what are the things I could be happy doing? I would start there. What are the things? So if I want to be in the entertainment industry, do I have to be an actor? Do I have to be the singer? Mm-hmm. Can I operate in a different context? Do I have to be, if I want to go to medicine, do I have to be the doctor? Can I sell medical equipment? Can I organize and administrate a hospital? And what you need to do is broaden your focus of what you think you might want to do. Yeah. Because, and this is why so many young people are, you drop $200,000 in an education and then you realize, nah, I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. And it's happening all over. And so then the politicians are saying, we all need to pay off these bad decisions that we ask 18-year-olds to make. Mm-hmm. Right. What do you want to do? And it's a $200,000 decision.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is your first focus needs to follow God. If I followed my dreams and desires, I never would have planted a church in Riverside, California. Never.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, when I was in seminary, everybody was called to plant a church in a really cool place. Wow. Man, Jesus just really loves Malibu. Yeah. Jesus just really loves Carlsbad. Jesus just really loves San Diego. And so, land. Here's what I would say is challenge your desires and dreams. Trust God. Challenge your what Lot does is he always challenges God and he trusts his gut. And it's just like, look, and he misses out. Literally what happens is Abram and Lot split. Lot goes to near Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham is blessed. And God says, see all of this? I will give it all to you, to the east, to the west, to the north, to the south. And I think so many of us, we miss out on God's blessing. And here's the thing is, if my fulfillment and happiness comes from me being successful and living out my dreams, and it doesn't work out, what happens to me? Like I was just in an interview yesterday, not to leave Sandals Church. I was being interviewed for a business opportunity to do some more writing. And I was meeting with an individual, and I was asking him, why did you get this job? And he was just telling me that the person that's job that he took ended up taking his life, very successful, but it wasn't working out and the company was struggling. So if all of your happiness and all your identity is wrapped up in your business and it doesn't work, what does that say about you? That's why your identity and who you are needs to be wrapped up in God, because then you're okay whether you succeed or not.
Totally. Yeah.
And what happens is, and guys, this is why you need to read the Bible over and over again. What happens is, I keep looking at you guys. I'm supposed to be looking at you guys. Sorry. What happens is, Lot's life unravels because he lives for himself.
Yeah.
And here's what I would say to all my questioners and all my doubters is, how is following your dreams working out individually? How is it working out like universally in our world? People are not happy. We have the, I know it's a presidential election next year. The economy's never been better. People are never make more money. Like things are better economically than they've been in 50, 60 years in America, and people are still miserable. So maybe it's not economics.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. And we have these young people who are trying to find satisfaction in the world. And nowadays, I think even young people especially are trying to find satisfaction in challenging culture, in challenging systems, right? So what's wrong with the world is our system. Well, the Bible says what's wrong with the world is our soul.
Yeah.
And so instead of looking within, young people want to make change and transform outside. And that is a recipe for disaster. What needed to change ultimately for Lot wasn't Sodom and Gomorrah. It was his own soul and his own decision-making. And so he lost it there. So I think that it's okay to have dreams. It's okay to have desires. You need to realistically write those things down. Like if my son comes to me and he says, Dad, my dream is to play in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, God didn't give you the pieces. You don't have the physical tools to do that. You don't have the abilities to do that. And you can say, well, God could do anything. Sure. Don't plan your life based upon miracles, right? They're called miracles. And if those things happen, that's great. Plan your life based upon the best decision-making that you can possibly, my fantasies, it's always funny. It's like, I don't know if you guys ever fantasize about yourself, but I always do. I fantasize like I'm a rock star and I'm singing. I have no musical talent at all. But like when I'm in the car, I envision myself just like a rock god, And it's disgusting. I don't know why you're laughing so bad.
Sorry.
We didn't know what to do. Yeah.
Do you ever have fantasies about like you doing something that's not you?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, give me an example.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Sometimes I just think I'll pray 24 hours a day.
Answers to your questions on the spot is a dream I have. One day. I'll get there.
I think
I'm with you.
We all have fantasies that are beyond us,
Sure, yeah.
Like I have fantasies about being super strong or super big or buff, like be like 6'8", 300 pounds, just go around slapping people,
I'm on my way to the 300 pounds part, by the way, yeah.
So I think we have to really, really guard against that and say, okay, God. And so, like, for example, my dreams and my desires early on were to be famous and to be a millionaire. I think God's dream for my life was to follow him and be a pastor and take care of my family and honor them by supporting them financially. So my wife and kids are the dream. And that's why I think so many people are not happy, because what should give you happiness is coming home and providing for your family and having some left over to give to God and charity. I mean, that's what I love to do, is I love to be able to do that and give something away. My dream is not to hoard a bunch of cash.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make anybody happy. Some of the most miserable people on earth, I mean, they got more money than you will ever make. And so, just really, really appreciating that. And I don't think Kobe Bryant's wife wants more money. She wants more time with her husband, more time with her daughter. Like those are the things that matter. And those are the things that money can't buy. So if Lot's broke, he's not ever leaving his uncle.
Right.
Yeah.
He's staying.
I'm going wherever you're going, Uncle, because you feed me the sandwich.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm going to stay right here. But now he has his own money. Now he has his own freedom. And that's why you see when kids inherit a lot of money, their lives are disasters and train wrecks, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah.
And so again, we talked about Proverbs 31, Proverbs 30, and you can look up the actual verse in the notes. Stephanie will do that. But it says, Lord, don't let me be so poor that I have to beg or steal.
Yep.
And Lord, don't let me become so wealthy that I become arrogant and forget you.
Exactly.
And that needs to be our prayer.
Huge.
That's a wise prayer.
That's huge.
God, give me the money I can handle, and give me the money that I can pay my bills and just honor you and thank God for you. And those are the happy people that aren't starving, but they're not so wealthy that, they're getting fat and getting all these weird diseases.
Yeah.
Because of we're just eating too much. We have too much food. And globally, like, we've gone from starvation being one of the biggest deals when I was a kid to now there's a global epidemic of obesity, even in poor nations. See what I'm saying? So everybody's shifting, and so it's a huge problem. So you don't have to be in ministry. God, we need you. We can't have a bunch of ministers because we can't pay them.
Right.
So I need you to go get a job. I'm just saying, consider that it might not be your dream.
Yeah.
It might be. God has a dream for you. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. What that verse means is they're different from your plans. That verse doesn't say, I know your plans and I can't wait to make them happen.
Right.
Thus says God.
Right.
He says, look, you're being carried off to Babylon as slaves. I have a different plan for you.
Yeah.
You went your way. How'd that go? Now let me bring you back. So in the context, try to let the point challenge you within the context.
Right.
It's not to say that all dreams and desires are wrong. I have desires for my wife. Those aren't wrong.
Sure.
But if I have desires for someone else's wife, then that's wrong.
You got dreams for our church.
Yeah,
Those
dreams for
aren't
our church.
Wrong.
Yeah.
It's good to dream and hope and strive. I think the way you started that was so good of let's listen to the challenge and the question. And sometimes the problem that we're having is in the way we heard it, not in what you actually said. So again, people hear desires. We're like, okay, that's all bad stuff, right? But then they hear dreams, like, don't come from my dreams.
Right, amen.
But the reality is, like, so I see so many people, they're worried if we roll it all over onto God, if we totally trust him, if we say I'm going to do whatever, that we're going to get ripped off.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that we have to reconcile is like,
and that goes
he
back
has
to,
better dreams.
Yeah, that goes back to Genesis 3. The devil lies. God knows that if you eat this fruit, you'll be like him. God knows you're missing out. And that's always a lie.
Yep.
The devil always lies. And so what Lot believes is he's missing out on something by not living in Sodom and Gomorrah. And here's what breaks my heart. His wife missed it when they left. Like, she couldn't leave it.
Look back.
She enjoyed it, right? That's what Hebrews says, that Moses did not allow himself to enjoy the pleasures of sin. Like, he fled. He went to the wilderness. Think about it. He's a prince of Egypt, and now he's herding sheep.
Yep.
The lowest of jobs.
That's a demotion for sure.
Yeah, demotion.
But he was blessed.
Yeah,
like,
and I think there's a
blessed
lot
in
of there's a lot of churches that really, really focus on your dreams, your ambitions, your desires, and what that does. And I even think a lot of the Christian writing. This is what I was talking to the Christian publication company that we were talking to. So much of Christianity today is God's a genie and he's just waiting to make your dreams come true. And that's just not the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
God's dream for you is for you to know him.
Yep.
And for him to know you and experience that relationship as you follow and trust him.
It.
And so whatever I got to do to make that happen. And so what that means for me is I've got to be careful. Like, my dreams and desires, I love to travel. I would go everywhere all over the world. But I know, and I love New Orleans. I love the food. I love the culture. I love the music. I know that I should never go there by myself. I should always be there with my wife or with accountability partners, because there are dangerous things there for me.
Oh yeah.
And so there are aspects of New Orleans that are beautiful, and there are aspects that are deadly and sinful and can destroy you. I mean, New Orleans is one of those cities where you can sit down, have a glass of wine, and just weep as you hear some of the greatest music you've ever heard in your life. Walk out, and there's a person passed out on the street who's vomited, and they'll be there all day. They don't pick them up.
Yeah.
The bodies, it's I don't know what their policy is, but Tammy and I, we went to another restaurant, and that dude was still there in the gutter.
Yikes.
You know that saying? You're in the gutter? He was in the gutter.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And so, there are things that you can do in Vegas, and there are things that you should not do and you should not be a part of in Vegas. And, before I used to be able to travel with people, what I would do when I would go to a hotel, I think I told you this when I checked in. I would say, I just want you to know I'm a pastor, and I want you to know that. Right. Because that was accountability for me, because you used to be able to watch porn. I don't know if you can still do that, but on the TVs in the hotel room, and you're sitting there, you're scrolling through, and it's easy. And so I had to, I don't think anybody should travel alone, but some people have to. But I would just say that out loud. I would speak that, because anybody can get stupid by themselves while you're eating, $7 candy bars, because it was in the refrigerator next to you.
Yeah.
It's easy to get stupid. And so I would say that. I'm a pastor, and there should not be any charges for movies on my account.
That's good.
And, like they cared, but I would vocalize that.
For you, for yourself.
For me.
Yeah.
And so, because everybody has desires, moments, dreams, fantasies that can lead us into a place that will completely destroy our lives. And I'm just grateful. That guy that I was meeting with and I was talking about before I came in, we ended our time together. I gave him a tour of 4 campuses, and I just feel like the word he spoke to me was from the Lord. He just put his hand on my knee and he said, Matt, I've only kissed one woman in my life. He said, my wife and I met in 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I've finished the race. I've been faithful. And I know what he was saying.
That's
you can too. And then he said, don't be like Bill Hybels. And then we left.
That was the go.
Yeah.
You do likewise.
Because all of us are enticed, right, by our desires. And I want you to start marrying the word dreams and desires, because I think we think dream, always good in God.
Yeah.
Desires, okay, maybe. But we need to check the dream too, to make sure that it submits to the Lord. And here's the thing: if God has given you great dreams, look what happens to Joseph. There's going to be great trials.
Oh yeah.
And so, sandals has not been easy. It's been the labor of my life, and it's beautiful. It's like parenting. It's beautiful and exhausting. It's just rough. And so, just know that. So, wow, that was long answer. Just pray about your dreams and your desires.
Yeah.
Because you have to ask yourself, are they leading me to the right place? And most of our listeners do not have friends that will lovingly challenge and lovingly walk you through that.
Yeah.
It's why I love 8s, because 8s challenge everything.
Right. Just inherently, naturally. Yeah. which is helpful.
Yeah.
That's good.
So in the spirit of our earlier part of the conversation about dating, relationships, we actually have a lot of questions that came in on dating, relationships, divorce, even homosexuality. So we want to kind of get through a bunch of those.
Wow, that was like, okay, yeah. Shotgun round. All right. You toss the grenade, pull the pin, and I'll hold it. Okay.
Yeah. So this first question comes in from Megan, who said, I recently heard you give advice to a young lady regarding healing from a past relationship. I'm 34 and would love to get married someday. Unfortunately, I have not had the best relationships with men. My father left, my brother molested me when I was younger, and I fell into an abusive romantic relationship. Therefore, my trust and comfort with men is pretty much non-existent. Recently, I've been trying to accept the idea that maybe God has called me to be single. What advice would you have for someone who's struggling with their trust and comfort with men, but would like to one day get married?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would absolutely encourage you to be single for a period of time. I think anyone, we said this, I think, in our last episode together, time and intentionality heals.
There you go. Not just time.
Time does not. Time just makes it fade away, but it's still there, waiting to come back out.
Time can make it fester and get worse and grow into something that is even more.
So let me just say this to you. My heart breaks for you that happened. I'm so sorry. There are loving, good men out there, and that's my prayer, that if you date, it is only with a good, loving man who will be devoted to you. And he's going to have to be a very special man, because sex has been such an ugly part of your life. And so you're going to need to not only trust God, but you're going to need to be able to trust this man that God puts in your life. And so I pray that it's a special, loving, kind, patient man. And I would go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and look at the kind of attributes that this man will need. But before you love someone else, you need to learn to love yourself, and you need to learn to let God teach you that. And so I would just say, yes, like I feel like the Holy Spirit is jumping out. Yes, you need to be single for a period of time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because You want to move healing as far down the road that you can take it yourself before you interject another person into your life. And let's imagine they have hurts and they have wounds, right? And those two things just kind of fester together, and it can be destroyed. So I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm hopeful for you. You're 34, right? There's still plenty of time.
Oh yeah.
There's plenty of time. So don't freak out about that. And the worst thing you can do is get into another bad relationship. So I would get in some counseling. I would get in a good community group, maybe even get a woman's support group here at our church with some women that can come alongside you, mentor you. I have a young woman in my life that's about this person's age, and we just took a walk together. We walked the dog. She's in our community group. She's been in our life, and I just try to listen. I just listen because I can't even imagine the pain and heartache that she's gone through. And all the men in our group, like, we just try to be an example of Jesus to her, just loving and open and safe, and even touch, even like if I just tapped your shoulder is not safe for her. So I have to be careful because I'm kind of I like to hug. So, but with her, if I were to hug her, it would have to be a side hug, and I would have to say, Are you comfortable with a side hug?
Right.
And sometimes she is, most times no.
Yeah.
Because she's been hurt so badly by men. And so I have to respect that and honor that, and just say all the time, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And some wounds are not healed until the wounded healer comes back. But that doesn't mean that we don't intentionally offer it up and say, God, fix this, heal this.
Yeah. And we've got great resources here as a church too. If you're even looking for a counseling referral or someone to walk with you as you figure out what's next for you, check out move.sc/help. There's a place there where you can get connected with somebody right away who would love to help you find a great counselor, help you walk through what singleness can look like for you right now, so that you're not doing that on your own. Yeah. So. Yeah,
don't do it alone.
Yeah, no.
I mean, why not? Why reinvent the wheel if it's already out there? Find somebody else who's walked through that. And let me just say to our listeners, this is why it's so important. If you've had some kind of sexual wound or hurt, it's so important that you're in community group, because you have no idea how what you've learned and how you've healed could help somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So just know that your deepest pain, God can use and redeem it to bring just the greatest level of healing to somebody else. And just to say, there's hope for you. This is not the end of your story.
We've been singing that song, Sea of Victory. That line in that. I mean, people have to realize the power of that statement. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. And so I just feel like our heart, we can read these questions, they come in and we kind of have conversation, but heart breaks for people like Megan, whose life is the way it is now. But man, God can take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it for good. And when we sing that again next weekend or whenever we sing it next, we can think about Megan, pray for those in our church who are fighting to believe that can be true for them. That what feels like absolute hopelessness, God can turn out to be the better plan for their lives that they never could have even dreamed of. That's amazing. So,
and for those listening, when you read Genesis 19 and you read about Sodom and Gomorrah, I think most of us would say, thank God that's not now. And I think Sodom and Gomorrah is in every major city on earth. It's just the shadow side of that city. And so, like just last week we had the Super Bowl. I mean, you had sex trafficking coming in from all over the world so that men could go to Florida and then, hook up with a prostitute, many of them underage, many of them not of their own free will, many of them paying off a debt that their family owes. I mean, it's just this whole ugly, shady side. And men, if you're listening, most women don't want to be in prostitution. They are in that for, because of their circumstances and either of their own choosing or someone else's choosing. And you just need to remember that, because I think men lie to ourselves and we say, well, they, somehow, they're in the sex industry because they enjoy it or something like that. And guys get real twisted with their thinking. And you just need to remind yourself, like, would you do that for money? Most healthy, normal people would not. Would not. And if you're like, yeah, I do that, then I would challenge you lovingly. Are you healthy? Are you normal? So, and I know that's offensive, but just because it's the oldest profession known to man doesn't mean it's the right one.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. Got another good question on the dating topic from Anna. says, I recently got broken up with after dating my best friend for about 5 years. I'm 20. And I know I have my whole life ahead of me, but
Yes,
I
you
just don't know what to do. I feel really lost and disconnected from God. I've been doing the 60-day sandals plan, multiple plans in the Bible app, and praying more than ever, but I just feel so far from God. Any advice on how to thrive in singleness? Haven't been single since I was 14. How to open myself up to other people in my life, and how to fully let go of that past relationship. So there's lots of questions in that one question.
Yeah. So my first question is, and she didn't leave her name, right?
Anna.
So
yeah.
my first question, Anna, if you were sitting here with me and we were in counseling, I would say, did you have sex with him? That'd be my first question. My assumption is yes.
Yeah.
I don't.
5 years is a long time.
5 years is a long time,
Yeah.
just to make out. But if you did it, praise God. Some people.
Yeah.
So that would be my first question is, did you have sex with him?
Yeah.
Sex bonds women to men in a way that men are not bonded in sex. And so it's why guys, will say whatever they want to say to try to get you in bed. So, and I'm not saying he did that. Obviously there was something there. There was 5 years, but I'm just saying, did you do that? If not, okay. I have more hope for you moving on and finding healing more quickly, because when you bond sexually with somebody, particularly when you're I would say a more morally conservative person. And let me say this to all of our people in our church who consider themselves liberal, or, like you would say, oh, I'm a Democrat. I'm just many of those people, you're still a social conservative. And so even though you may not vote that way or think that way, you live in a morally conservative way. And so when you do that, you have deep-rooted beliefs about marriage, about sex that you may not even be aware of. And so you might be running around saying, I'm liberal in these ways, but there's a deeper part of you that's saying, no, this sex meant something. This sex is taking us somewhere. This sex is, for a person who doesn't care about relationships, right, sex is the goal. For most people, especially people who are morally conservative, sex is not the goal. Sex is a mean to an end. So I'm hoping that out of this we'll get married. Out of this we'll, like something else will happen. And then when that doesn't happen, right, there's this whole just wounding that occurs. And then you're just not sure what to do with yourself, because the person that you convinced yourself it was okay to have sex with, now you're not with them. Now how do I move on? Yeah. So what I would say is, Anna, get in counseling. Same thing. Get a great female counselor. Go to the site that Stephanie mentioned. Cal Baptist has free counseling for students, especially people your age. Find a Christian counselor, not somebody that's going to encourage you to jump into another sexual relationship, and really work through that so that you can identify whatever it is you need to identify. So, and it doesn't need to all be bad. What were the good things that you liked about him? And then how can you transfer those over to the next person that you date? Because I think a lot of times one of the reasons people don't learn from breakups is they throw it all out.
Yes.
Oh, they were all bad. And I'm like, well, there was something that you liked for 5 years.
Right.
So that's what I would say, Anna, is what were the things that you liked about him so that you can continue to look for those things in the future? And then what were the things that you didn't like so that you can avoid that the next time? Because not all men are the same.
Right.
They're just not. And so find that guy that meets a list of non-negotiables for you. And so I'm going to give you a list of non-negotiables from the Bible. And it's okay to add to those things. It's okay to say, if I'm a woman and I'm college educated, I have my master's, I want to date an educated man. I think that's an acceptable I don't know that I would say a non-negotiable, but I would say I think that's okay.
Yeah. It's a fair thing to shoot
a standard
for.
Or
a standard
a goal.
target.
I mean, I think those things are legitimate. But if you have to choose a highly educated jerk, or a guy who works with his hands Monday through Friday, but loves the Lord, loves you, loves your kids, I'm going to say choose him. So that's what I would say. But so I would just say, work through those things, come up with your own list, but get in a community group and try your best to stay away from guys for, I would say 5 years, at least 5 months, 1 month for every year, at least. Sure. That's a long dating time. I would encourage you to try to do a year. Yeah. Try to do a year. And I know that that's hard. But you took a time off for dating, right? How long was it?
Oh man, it was at least over a year of just like before there was even hey, we're kind of talking, or like that kind of thing.
Was that helpful?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I wish I'd have done that when I was 20.
Yeah.
I think that for Anna, 5 years, and those 5 years were 14 to 20.
Yeah. Those
you've raised teenagers, Pastor Matt, like they're figuring out who they are in those years. So there's even some, whether there was sex in this relationship or not, even this, Anna's had to now find out who she is apart from someone when all she's kind of been doing is operating in tandem with them. So I think it just takes time. Like I had to figure out who am I, who is God, how are we doing? How is God and I doing? And now my identity needs to be on him and not what I'm getting from these relationships or building myself kind of in conjunction with someone else. Now I have to know and build in conjunction with God.
Yeah, I think especially during the teenage years, it's so essential that you make opposite sex friends. And you learn how to interact, you learn how to talk, you learn how to exist in a relationship in a non-sexual way, because that's the primary way that you're going to act and behave in a marriage. Singles don't want to accept this, but sex is 1% of the relationship. I mean, it's just, and then you have 99 other percent. And so we make the whole choice based upon the 1%, and that's why we're very, very unhappy with the 99%. And so, at least listen to the 99%. And that's why God says, hey, check out Proverbs 31. And she says, most men get this wrong. And most women, because now women are able to choose and do what they want. So sorry, Anna, I love you.
Yeah.
So moving into slightly different facet of the conversation, we had a bunch of questions come in just around how homosexuality plays into all of this too. That's something that's coming up a lot more. And Andy actually wrote in and she said, I'm 18 years old and my now ex-boyfriend of over a year and I recently broke up because he's gay. We've decided to remain friends as we were before we dated because we still can't bear to lose each other despite this. He has such a strong relationship with the Lord and hopes to not end up living a gay life, but is unable to suppress his feelings of desire. He's so scared of what might happen because he's Christian and judgment always results. How do I go about supporting, but not affirming, a very close person to me who's gay, encourage his walk with the Lord, but at the same time heal myself?
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the, there's a bunch going on there, but one of the problems in our society is, if Tammy and I are married and I'm straight and I leave her for a woman, people are like, oh, that's bad. But if Tammy and I are married and I leave her for a man because I realize I'm gay, they're like, oh, well, you kind of get this moral pass and your covenant and your promises, none of that matters. And that's just really confusing to me because I think when you make a promise, when you make a covenant, you live it out. So that's why she's hurt. And a lot of girls, I think, fall in love with gay guys because they're awesome. I would have him read, and maybe you guys want to read it together, a great book. I think his name is Andrew Yuan or Andrew Wan, but it's Y-A-U-N or Y-U-A-N. Stephanie will put it in the show notes. Yeah. But the book is Holy Sexuality, and it is fantastic. It might be a little bit over your head because of your comprehension level and your education level, but it's a fantastic book. And Andrew is a gay man that got saved after he found out he was HIV positive. And just ultimately turned his life around for Christ and his understanding of what God was calling him to. And oftentimes, the argument that I think Andrew presents so well is we oftentimes think of homosexual bad, heterosexual good. And so what we want people is to be heterosexual. And what he's saying, the Bible is not calling you to be homosexual or heterosexual, it's calling you to be holy sexual. And that's a very different calling, which has different challenges for the heterosexual and different challenges for the homosexual. But he is walking in singleness and is devoted to living a celibate life for the rest of his life. And it's difficult for him, it's challenging for him, but it's a fantastic book. Anybody that knows a person that's gay, that is also a Christian or is considering Christianity, it is a must read. Yeah. And his story is very different. It's the opposite of what you would think. And, we all have these stories that we play out in our minds, right? So his parents are Christian and they hate him and they kick him out. That's not what happens. His parents are Asian, not Christian, probably Buddhist. I can't remember what they are, but they're not Christian. And they kick him out because he's their only son. And, in the Asian community, right, his job is to continue the family.
Right.
And they go their own ways. And he drops out of school, gets into drugs. His whole life spirals out of control. And actually, he's in a prison cell looking at the bed above him. And it says, if you're bored, I love this, read Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you.
Wow.
And he started reading the Bible and it started convicting him. And his conversion piece is, he actually said it was Romans 1. And I went, oh, of course, because it speaks on homosexuality. And it wasn't the part about desires. He said, in the end, people will dishonor their mother and father. And that convicted him.
Wow.
And he realized he had dishonored his mother and father. On the other side, his mother and father became born-again Christians and realized they had to love their son.
Wow.
And so they
were
pursued
both
him
working
and
toward each
prayed
other,
for
yeah.
him for 7 years.
Wow.
7 years, right? And, let me just say, sexuality is a big part of who we are. But as a Christian, it's not all of who we are. And so our sexuality has to submit to our spirituality. And let me say this, for her friend, it's a struggle for him. It'll be a struggle tomorrow. It'll be a struggle for the rest of his life. Just as it is for me as a heterosexual man who has desires that are outside of what God has called me to do and to live. And so every day I submit to what God has for me because I believe he's right. And I trust his desires for my life over my own. And I'm almost a 49-year-old man. So I would say it does get easier, but it does not go away.
Yeah.
It does not go away. And so, at Sandals, we are open to everyone, gay, straight. And so the question with the church that you're attending is, churches will say we're open and affirming. Sandals is open. We're not affirming of the gay lifestyle. And so that means we have gay couples in our church. We may have some people that are they're married and they have kids. God's ultimate plan for them is that they would walk in holy sexuality.
Yeah.
That's his plan. And what that means as a gay person is that you abstain from same-sex sex. You abstain from that. And then if you're going to participate and engage in heterosexual sex, that it would be limited to a lifelong, covenantal, monogamous relationship. And the world thinks that's crazy.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you,
And I think it's okay for her to, like, I know he's your close friend, you've been in each other's lives for so long, but it's okay for you to maybe need a little space too. Because you're a person with a heart who got hurt in that, and I know you love him and want to be there for him, but it's okay if you need a little space to heal from the relationship before also being his support through this. And you can pray for and encourage him to find other healthy relationships to walk through while you maybe get a little bit of time yourself to heal.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you need to have grace for him. I think people figure out their sexuality. I mean, I have friends that knew they were gay from when they were like 8 years old. They just knew. And then I have other friends that they started to question it in their 20s. And they're like, what is going on here? And so there is no normative path to understanding one's sexuality, right? We're all exposed to, like I was exposed to pornography in second grade. That puts me on a different path.
Yep.
That puts me on a sexualized path that if I'm not exposed to that, my curiosities are probably going to remain dim for some time.
Sure.
And I think that's why there's the big push in our culture to push sex education so low, because it's to normatize behavior that is not biblical.
Yeah.
And so, but I would just say, have grace for him. I hope he stays at our church. We are open to anybody who wants to follow Christ. And I just want you to know there are gay people at our church. They wouldn't like that term. They use all kinds of different terms to describe it, but they are attracted to their same sex.
Right.
The last thing you want to talk to a gay person about is their sexuality. You need to talk to them about Jesus. But the reason I lost my mind at LA Fitness was he was sharing a gospel that says you don't have to change a thing about you. And I said, and we're not talking about homosexuality, we're talking about weed.
Yeah.
I said, that's not the gospel.
That's not the gospel. Yeah.
That's a false gospel. I mean, you can see I'm getting pumped up. I'm like, that is a false gospel.
Yeah.
That is not true. What you're saying is not true. And the guy's like, you need to relax, man. And then I'm like, you need to relax.
Right,
and,
yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, now I got to apologize.
Now we all need to apologize.
Apologies all
Then
the
you
way
assaulted
around.
the guy, and it's like, oh, geez.
You know what he said, though, afterwards, after I apologized? He said, man, I can't believe that you stood up that firmly for what you believe. I said, well, I am a pastor of Sandals Church.
I believe the gospel.
And he's all, I think I've been to your church, man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so I would just say that. And again, what we don't want gays is to feel picked on, isolated.
Yeah.
And you got, the Bible says that homosexuality is a sin. It also says divorce is a sin. I mean, it just is. Sacrificing your children to Molech, they would have babies and then throw them on the altar. I mean, that's what I think abortion is. It's wrong.
Yeah.
God's grace is real even for you, no matter what you've done. But we need to be open to sinners, but not affirming of sin. And I don't get to pick what sin is. See, that's what that guy was saying. We can smoke a bowl. We can drop F-bombs. We can be everything we want to be and have Jesus.
Yeah.
That's not what Jesus.
not the gospel.
Jesus didn't die so you could stay the way you are. He died so you could be something different.
Boom.
And that's hard for people, but we don't hear the real gospel anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just don't. So if you're gay and you're listening to this, hopefully you'll stay at Sandals Church and just know I love you. Yeah. But just know this, as you walk with Jesus, there are always going to be forks in the road where you're not going to want to keep going.
Yeah.
And they're going to come in multiple ways. They're going to come in the form of tithing, serving, fasting, praying, changing your sexual behaviors, changing your appetites, your desires. And those forks in the road are very, very real. And that's why narrow is the road that leads to life, and there are few that find it.
Right.
Broad is the road that leads to destruction.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and the Greek word for broad is actually easy.
Yeah.
Easy is the way.
Right.
Easy is the way that leads to destruction. And so one of my favorite verses is Matthew 11, 28 and 29. Come to me all who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest for your souls.
Right.
For my yoke is easy.
Yeah.
That word isn't easy in the Greek. I looked it up. It's kind. I don't know. I don't know who translated it easy, but he's saying my burden is kind and gentle.
Right.
You can bear it.
Yeah.
Because it's made for you.
That's good, man.
And if you're gay, there's a way that God has made sex for you, and that may not be the way that your desires point you, but you have to ask, am I going to follow God's desires for my sexuality, or am I going to follow my desires? And those are two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And Lot ultimately, it never says whether he partook in that, but if all the men of the city are partaking in it, I can't imagine that he, and that's why I think they're offended. And I'm reading into this, but look at this outsider. Now he's judging us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently he was okay with, what was he okay with before? You know what I'm saying? And he's aware that the angels shouldn't spend the night in the city square.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you don't want to do that.
And the people in the town weren't hesitant about coming to his house.
Yeah. It's one of the saddest verses in the Bible. All the men of the city, young and old,
It's terrible.
were unified to rape angels. And so,
Well, just the new people in town.
yeah.
Like it was like new PA, new people are here.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to watch sex because, even in Genesis 6, and we didn't really cover that, as we went through the Bible, but the Nephilim,
Yeah.
the sons of God had sex with the sons of men, or the sons of men had sex with the sons of God. And nobody knows what that word means exactly, but it wasn't good. And sex brought about evil that ultimately brought about, right, the flood.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are again, but God's made a covenant. He won't destroy the whole earth, so he just destroys the city. So he honors his covenant, but he kills this infection, that was a culture of rape, and that was the culture, and it was disgusting. So
It's terrible.
All right. So
that was super heavy.
Wow.
That was really heavy.
Thanks for coming back with that one.
We got
Yeah,
there.
you're welcome. Glad you're back.
The verse that you mentioned though about Jesus saying, "Come," and the yoke being kind. I mean, to end on that note of encouragement for people who are struggling, who are gay, who are feeling like, why did it have to be this thing?
Mm-hmm.
There's these burdens that people struggle with. Why does mine have to be this?
Mm-hmm.
That those words from Jesus are for you.
Yeah.
That his yoke is easy. It's kind. It's light.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
But come to him. You have to come to him.
Yeah.
Just try. Just even that. Just coming to him and allowing him to help with that. But
Yeah. And I would just say this,
Yeah.
and I think you would agree with this, that we have both in different ways struggled with our sexuality and honoring God.
Absolutely.
And I would say it was the most difficult thing I've had to control.
Yeah.
For the sake of the cross.
Yep.
And so one of that fight that I got into, somehow it came up the last time I smoked marijuana was I smoked a bowl and went to Thrifty's Ice Cream. I told the story. The guy said, "You've never smoked weed again?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah. It didn't.
But weed for me wasn't my cross.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But sex with my girlfriends was.
Yeah.
That dude, I was like, I can't give this up.
Exactly.
You know,
100%.
I mean, this is who I am, right? I'm a man. This is what men do.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? See
It's
that whole
deep
identity.
to who you were. Yeah.
And Jesus said, "Are you about who you are? Or are you about who I am?"
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, dude, the Lord was unrelenting on me and spoke to me specifically. I mean, I heard God say, "If you continue in this, I will judge you." Like, I heard God say that to me.
Yeah.
So all these people that run around saying God's okay with it, that's not the God that I worship. That's not the God who spoke to me.
Yeah.
So I just want to give hope, you know, to those out there. I mean, you've been what, sexually faithful for?
Yeah. I mean, no porn or anything for over 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
That's awesome.
You know, and I've been with the same woman for 24 years.
Yeah.
So it's possible. It's not easy, but it's kind. It's gentle. And it's the path that God has called us to. And so if you're gay, just know I love you.
Yeah.
And I can't understand exactly what you're going through, but I don't want you to think we're that far off, because my own challenge in my 20s was brutal. And to a lot of the young people at our church, just like that guy's telling these people you can smoke a bong and have Bible study, there's a lot of people in our church who think it's okay to have sex and go to small group.
Yep.
It is not, unless you're in a lifelong committed relationship that is been publicly announced as marriage, right? And that's why people say the paper doesn't matter. It's not the paper, it's your testimony. So like we had youth group the other night, I know we're wrapping up. Did you guys hear what I did? So the invitation, right? So the church has historically called people to the altar.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
So we had 800 youth, and I put a slide up on the screen, and it said, Jesus is my way, my truth, my life. I've decided to follow Jesus. I said, take a picture of it and post it on your Instagram right now. And you should have heard the audio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's easier to walk down an aisle than it is to take that picture
and
post.
it.
And I said, and tag me in it. And 74 kids did.
Amazing.
74 kids took a picture. Now, I didn't go to all their sites.
Sure.
But they tagged me in it. I gave my life to Jesus tonight. I'm announcing this. That's why marriage matters. I'm announcing to all my friends, to everybody knows me, to everybody that matters me, Tammy's the one.
Yeah. That's why baptism matters, because you got to get in pool. You know, you can't do that privately. You got to do that publicly.
People don't want accountability.
Yeah.
But we need it.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's
Love
good.
you guys. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
It was good to have Stephanie back.
Yeah.
And the Tim Dog Millionaire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, follow up, want to get
Oh,
your question on
geez.
the next
I
episode.
can't imagine the follow-up.
We will be recording some more, so send those in at debrief.show. We would love to get those
We won't
on
be
the
here
show.
for the next show. We're taking
Yeah,
this
like,
one off.
we gotta go.
Sorry,
So
we gotta.
I had a baby,
It's just touchdown
it's
Jesus
just
and
you.
Matt. The next show, just a quiet room.
He liked
Hello,
the show.
everyone. I'm here with all the follow-up questions.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Love
Thanks,
you. Bye.
guys.